Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today as we wrap up an historic Democratic National Convention hosted in the greatest freaking city in the world, the city of Chicago. First of all, and most important, I want to thank every single City Chicago worker, the workers who spent months preparing and executing the best political convention that this country has ever seen. I especially want to thank Superintendent Larry Snelly and the thousands of rank and file officers of the Chicago Police Department for doing what they have purpose to do, and that's to keep everyone safe throughout the convention and protecting our guests, the protesters, and everyone's constitutional rights, and of course, our neighborhoods. If the 1968 convention went down in history as the example of police brutality, then the 2024 convention will go down as the example of constitutional policing. These brave women and men show the world how we can maintain safety while protecting the people's right to protest and to have their voices heard. That is what I asked them to do, and I'm so proud of that work. The DNC was truly a full force of government effort, so I want to take a few seconds to acknowledge all of the government departments and sister agencies who put in the long hours and accomplished this monumental feat. Our Office of Emergency Management and Communications, led by Executive Director Jose Terrado, he did an incredible job this week. Let's give him a nice, warm round of applause. They kept a regular and disciplined information flow, anticipated problems before they arose, and dealt with the molehills before they became mountains. Thank you to everyone at OEMC who put in the work. You did it away from the spotlight. But without you, the city doesn't shine. Though you did it without glamour, you're the ones who made it possible. We want to thank our Chicago Fire Department, particularly the leadership of Commissioner Annette Nance Holt. The months of preparation that went into this is truly an incredible testament to the spirit of our city. We are the city that works, and we work because of our working people. From the CTA workers, train conductors, and bus drivers who made sure folks could get home, to the streets and sanitation workers who made sure we showed the best of who we are to the entire world. And of course, to our Department of Transportation that coordinated all of these routes and closures. To every single city worker, regardless of their department, that contributed in big ways, you did it small and large. You welcomed visitors to Chicago, visitors who were blown away by our city. They saw great, vibrant, clean streets, small businesses, bustling commercial corridors, world-class food, and the mosaic of our neighborhoods. They saw our 600+ public parks and, of course, our beautiful lakefront. But more than anything else, they saw and fell in love with our people. Because DNC or no DNC, it is still Chicago. And all the beauty on display this week is beauty that has long been a part of who we are. We are truly a welcoming city with warm people who love to share their culture and community. I want to give a special shout out to some individuals in particular from my team for their remarkable work to this effort. Chief Operating Officer John Robertson. Had y'all for a minute there, huh? To our Deputy Mayor of Infrastructure, Lori Lipson. Deputy Mayor of Community Safety, Gary Gatewood. And to the person that makes sure that this corporate is always protected, our corporate counsel, Mary Richardson Laurie. To our communications teams and so many others that I really just wish I had more time to name. What I have seen firsthand from you, all of you, over the last several months is true to who we are. You are the embodiment of what I call servant leadership. You did the work that was not always pretty. You went way beyond the call of duty because of a deep caring and a commitment to our city. Thank you all for your dedication. Thank you all for your service. We partnered with the DNC Host Committee and community partners to rescue, check this out, you all, more than 7,000 pounds of food. Angela Tovar, you did your thing. That translates to thousands of meals for food for people who are food insecure. The best part, every single meal stayed right here. It stayed right here in Chicago. It went to Chicagoans. So I want to thank the DNC Host Committee, Secret Service, and all of our state and federal partners. This was truly a team effort, and I'm extremely grateful for all of you all's contributions. Thank you to the hard work and to the working families in the near West Side who welcome visitors in their community. The near West Side, I know it was a tough few days for you all, but you all showed out. You all represented Chicago so well because, you know, the West Side is still the best side. I'm honored and humbled to be your mayor. It's a beautiful city. Grateful that all the delegates around the world got a chance to get a real taste and experience of Chicago, the place that we call home. Leading up to this convention, there were many people who had doubts. I don't know why, Superintendent, but they had doubts. Many of them had questions. I'm okay with those. They said, is Chicago ready? Is Chicago ready for this convention? We heard it all. Chicagoans heard it all. But being Chicagoans, we stuck to the grind and we kept at work. And today, after pulling off the best convention this country has ever seen, not only can we claim that we are the best freaking city in the world, we also get to claim in a very emphatic way. In the words of Skytown's own Angel Reese, what they gonna say now? What they gonna say now? Every Chicagoan today should feel proud. Newspapers around the world are writing about an historic convention in a historic city that nominated a black woman of Asian descent to the highest position in the land. We hosted a sitting president, 2 former presidents, as well as countless governors, senators, union leaders, faith leaders, working class delegates. We hosted the complexity of our democracy. Chicagoans are people with an unbreakable spirit. You're never going to allow anyone else in the world to tell us anything different. We have a vibrant city, a city that is truly on the move, a city that is entering into a new era of prosperity. I want to thank every single Chicagoan for setting the record straight once and for all. We stood strong, we stood together, and that all of that made the difference. We made history, and we did it our way, the Chicago way. So now, with that, I'm going to bring to the stage my dear friend and the great optimist, because like me, he's a beloved Cubs fan, OEMC Executive Director, Mr. Jose Tirado.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Jose Tirado. I'm the Executive Director of the Office of Emergency Management and Communications for the great city of Chicago. For more than a year, OEMC has coordinated with the Secret Service, the Chicago Police Department, the Chicago Fire Department, and city agencies, as well as other partners and convention organizers, to ensure the safety of all residents, visitors, and delegates for the Democratic National Convention. I want to take this opportunity to thank my staff at OEMC and all of our partners who have been part of this great mission. I want to thank our 911 call takers and dispatchers, the emergency management team, the traffic management authority, our 311 call takers, our OEMC operations centers, our OEMC communications team, and the more than 40 agencies and partners represented in the Emergency Operations Center. I also want to acknowledge the outstanding coordination and communication amongst all our agencies to ensure the safety of this event. I am proud to have worked with this team throughout the past year, and I am grateful for their partnership. And with that, I'll turn it over to Superintendent Larry Snelly.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I believe it's still morning. First of all, let me say thank you to Executive Director Jose Tirado for the great work that OEMC did. I have to thank the entire team over there. There are a lot of things that have happened behind the scenes and people that you have not seen who help bring this together. So it wasn't just one entity. It was the entire city coming together, and all of those people who had a vested interest in making sure that the city was safe. I'd definitely like to thank members of the mayor's team, where we had constant communication. Mary, thank you. The legal advice between you and CPD has been excellent in helping us get through this. You know, Christina, just the constant communication about what's going on and just keeping the mayor abreast of it. You know, John, you know, we went to school close together, but we won't talk about that. We'll talk about that a little later. But just from the very beginning, all the work that you put into it. Garion, an excellent partner, out there with making sure that our communities are safe. And Lori on the end over there, hanging out in the park, making sure that everybody had their First Amendment rights heard. So I know that had to be challenging, but you pulled it off. So, and just to the entire team, I'd like to thank the mayor for trusting me enough to choose me to be in charge of a department that I love, of members that I admire and love. I've been doing this job for 32 years. Just such a great honor to be here. So I'd like to thank you, Mayor, for that. Just great work being done. At some point, I'm going to introduce my leadership team, because without them, I'm just telling you right now, this could not have been done. So what I'd like to talk about is the end of the DNC in the week, starting on the 19th, ending on the 22nd, which was yesterday. And one of the things that we talked about was keeping the entire city safe, not just the areas around the DNC. Since the start of it, from the 19th to the 22nd, all of our districts had plans in place to make sure that we kept the city safe and secure. And I just want to talk about a few numbers when we compare the same numbers of the same period of time last year. From that Monday to Thursday last year, we saw a 26% reduction in shootings, a 31% reduction in homicides. We also saw a 54% reduction in robberies. We've seen a reduction in over 300 robberies just in that time period. 35% reduction in vehicular hijackings, and a 47% reduction in motor vehicle thefts. Now, although those are reductions, we still have work to do. But it just goes to show the work that was still going on in our districts and around the city while our other officers went down to protect people's First Amendment rights and protect the city as a whole. I can't say enough about our partners at the Secret Service, just the constant communication. They've just been great partners. And Derek, the best hair on the planet.
I want to recount.
He was out there with us yesterday. Joe Heffernan out there every single day. Jeff Burnside, just great partners. Can't say enough about the work that they did. Again, the Chicago Fire Department, been partners with us. Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing. The partnership there is amazing. So I have to get the commissioner's name right this time because I messed it up one time. She's never let me forget it. Commissioner Annette Nance Holt. I'd just like to thank you for your leadership and your team.
There's another black woman's name they all know how to pronounce now, too, because of the convention. This is a non-political event.
So again, we set out to make sure that we kept the city safe while protecting First Amendment activity. And we did just that. I cannot say enough about the work that our officers did out there. We sat and we watched these officers go through it. We saw people yelling in their faces, yelling obscenities, and they maintained their cool throughout. They didn't take the bait. So as a result of it, you didn't see the activity that people expected to see. So again, please, can we stop talking about 1968? 2024, it's a new standard. And the men and women of the Chicago Police Department set that new standard out in the field. And I just could not be more proud of those men and women and the work that they put into this, making sure that the city was safe. As a result of everything that occurred out there, there were a total of 74 arrests that were around protest situations. In that, we had 4 people go to hospital, and that was for medication problems. Someone complained of chest pains. And then there were 3 other incidents where someone complained of some type of injury. There was an injury to a finger and pain to a knee, and they were treated and released. We had a few officers who were injured, and those officers refused medical attention because they did not want to leave their fellow officers out there alone. They wanted to stay with their fellow officers to make sure that they were safe. So as a result, with no one being injured, no one being hurt, it tells you how truly effective the approach was and the training was that we started over a year ago. But let me talk a little bit about my leadership team. These people were out there. This was a top-down effort. Without this leadership team up here right now, this could not have been possible. These chiefs were boots on the ground, and they were out there. Because if we expect the men and women of this department to go out there and police the way we expect them to police, we should be out there with them, making sure that we are serving as support. So our overall incident commander, Chief Dwayne DeVries, just the work that he put into preparing for this. I know I started it. I had the Bureau of Counterterrorism before I appointed him to that position, and he stepped in. Couldn't ask for a better person to step in and take over that. I'd also like to thank Deputy Chief Jill Stevens, who was working with him on this, and Deputy Chief Chris Papaioannou. Chief John Hine, the Chief of Patrol, what can I say? This man knows every protester on the planet. I think someone was here from Norway. He knew that guy too.
That's how I met him.
But his ability to communicate with people and talk to them about how we need them to perform so that everyone is safe. Just cannot say enough about the work that he did out there, and both of them stood arm in arm, shoulder to shoulder with the officers out in the field. Chief Antoinette City, our Chief of Detectives. I mean, I can't say enough about the work that she's doing over there, solving crimes, closing out homicides, and professionalizing the unit in a way that we haven't seen, making sure that detectives have tools to get their jobs done quicker. Just an excellent job. Working on First Amendment activity and our coordinated multiple arrest policy. Chief Yolanda Talley, the Bureau of Internal Affairs. What can I say? She just works her fingers to the bone to make sure that we have all of the information that we need, and she also worked on that coordinated multiple arrests policy and had people out in the field making sure. She also had people out in the field making sure that they would take any complaint that came from anyone. At this time, right now, we have about, I believe it's 8 or 9 complaints. I'll just have to confirm that. At this time, total complaints. And that's over a 4-day period. It's just amazing. Chief Angel Navales of Constitutional Policing, who has been helping coordinate getting all of the officers out to the field, making sure that those officers are fed, making sure that they're hydrated, making sure that they have what they need. At some of these sites, we had EAP out there and peer support for the officers to talk to make sure that our officers were in the right mindset when they hit the field. It's just an amazing thing, an amazing job by this team. I cannot say enough about the work that they did. Now, my comms team, Don, Maggie, Tom, and Tom. There wasn't a reporter that could walk up to me without Don putting on his shoulder pads. I just wanted to make sure he didn't tackle anybody. But just the work that you guys have done throughout this have been amazing. So I just want to thank you for that. So lastly, what I'd like to say is our city was on display. And it was on display for the world to see. And I guarantee you the world was watching because everyone kept talking about 1968. However, we showed again that this is not 1968. We showed what human beings, men and women of the police department, who are often criticized, some of it may be warranted, a lot of it isn't. And hopefully we can have a clear understanding and clear dialogue and clear communication about how officers are trained and what officers are dealing with, so that we have a clear understanding of how officers are responding. Change in a department does not happen overnight. It happens over time. And you see what happens when we respect human beings because we expect them to respect others. When we take care of those human beings and make sure that they're well, make sure that they're taken care of, because when they feel comforted, they can comfort others. This is why these officers show great restraint. We treated them like human beings because that's what they are. As we continue to move forward, the DNC is behind us now. Now it's time to bring this city back up to the standards that we know it can be. And that starts with everybody here and the collaboration in this room, and I'd like to thank everyone here. And I just can't say enough about the Chicago Police Department. We will continue to grow. We will continue to get that done. And so that I don't mess this up again, I am going to introduce the Chicago Fire Department Commissioner, Annette Nance Holt.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Let me say a special thank you to Superintendent Snelling and to Jose Tirado. We work together very closely throughout the year. We have a lot of special events, so we're quite familiar with each other, and we're used to planning big events. Of course, it wasn't a surprise to us, and we came together and were able to do this along with our partners, the Secret Service, which we work with on other occasions when they come to town. So I'm just very honored to have a partnership like this and to have people who are willing to put in the work and take the time to make sure everything is the way it should be. And I also want to especially say thank you to all the city agencies that work so closely with us. If we start naming them, we'd be here till tomorrow, because every city agency basically had their footprint with this convention. And they did a great job to make sure this historic event went off the way that it did. I want to say our planning and passion and commitment, it paid off. This took a lot of planning, a lot of tabletops, a lot of drills, a lot of manpower, a lot of thinking, a lot of rethinking, a lot of paper in the garbage can, because it just didn't plan out the way we wanted. But I want to start by thanking my command staff, because I'm going to tell you, being a leader without a great command staff like I have, it just couldn't happen. And I tell you, I have the best. I have Mary Sheridan, who rolled with me every day, wherever we had to go, to make sure everything was going the way it should be. Deputy Fire Commissioner Mark Furman, he runs the whole city's operation, fire and EMS. A phenomenal man who, he had a board over there in his office. Every time I go there, the board would change. I mean, we were like, what now? He would think of other things along with his team that we needed to address to make sure we were successful in this. Also to Chief Cynthia Herring, she's the Fire Prevention Bureau, which was over all the venues. They had quite a challenge, but they did a great job in what they did. Also, Chief Himmold, who was over at operations, he was moving our strike teams, our task force in place to support CPD. Phenomenal. Chief Keller, who was over logistics and our task teams, he actually was responsible for logistics. Logistics made sure all our members were transported, fed, all their needs were met, water, whatever they needed, even down to porta potties. Everything worked out great with this partnership. Also, Assistant Deputy Fire Commissioner Hernandez, who's back here, who is over EMS, Emergency Medical Services. He made sure all of his paramedics, all the paramedics were in place, and they had everything that they needed. Another lift, and we still continue to serve the entire city without anybody suffering any delays. And especially to District Chief, well, Deputy District Chief, he thinks he's getting a promotion, I think. Yeah. Francisco Velez, let me tell you, everybody will tell you, anything go to Frank. We had all types of things popping up. Frank made sure it happened right away. Invaluable partnerships with all the different agencies. If you ask anybody about Frank, Frank gets it done. And then the only thing, I didn't name everybody, and I don't want to offend people, but to my men and women of the Greater Chicago Fire Department, my firefighters and paramedics, they did everything to make sure this was a success. I actually visited them last night over by the United Center, and I said, how are you guys? They said, we're tired, but we're honored to be here. This is such a historic event. I was just like, oh my God, that just made me feel so good. They were determined to make this a success. So I just want to say thank you to everybody who was integral to this. If I missed them, I'll catch up with them with a memo when I get back and get some sleep. But I would like to now introduce Jeff Burnside, the U.S. Secret Service Coordinator. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good morning.
Good morning.
As the Commissioner said, my name is Jeff Burnside, and over the past 18 months, it has been my privilege to serve as the Secret Service Coordinator for the 2024 Democratic National Convention. Over the past year and a half, I've gotten to know this city, and I've felt firsthand Chicago's hospitality and strong work ethic. I want to thank Mayor Johnson, Superintendent Snelling, Executive Director Tirado for their tireless work and dedication to this event. I'd also like to thank the men and women of the Chicago Police Department, the Chicago Fire Department, OEMC, and the Secret Service's Chicago Field Office for their dedication to ensuring that this event was a success. There are countless others across numerous agencies that you've heard today that I'd like to thank for their efforts ensuring public safety and security for this convention. It's too numerous to name. As you've heard, every city agency was involved in the preparation for this event, and I'm personally very grateful for that. I'd like to take just a minute, though, to especially thank Chief Dwayne DeVries from the Chicago Police Department, the chief of the Counterterrorism Bureau, who served as the incident commander for the Chicago Police Department for this National Special Security event. I can tell you that there's not one person in the Chicago Police Department that's worked harder at this effort over the last 18 months than Chief DeVries, and I really appreciate his leadership, his knowledge, his skills, and his abilities that we're able to apply to our security plan to ensure the safety, as the mayor said, not only for everyone attending the convention, but the nearly 2.7 million residents of the city of Chicago. It is not a small undertaking, and Chief, I just want you to know it didn't go unnoticed or unappreciated. Thank you. This process began 18 months ago, and as a group, we had numerous planning meetings, development meetings, community outreach to include door-to-door canvassing on 2 different occasions to engage with businesses and residents. We also held numerous follow-up meetings with community groups and leaders to ensure that the public understood what they could expect. It's that communication, along with the hard work of our law enforcement partners, that helped make this National Special Security event a tremendous success. Putting on an NSSE, as you saw, is a tremendous undertaking, and the Secret Service could not ask for better partners and a more professional group of dedicated public servants than your law enforcement and public safety community here in the great city of Chicago. Again, it's been my honor and privilege to have had the opportunity to work with this group of individuals. The law enforcement and public safety community in Chicago is second to none, and their residents in the city of Chicago should be proud of that. Now I'd like to introduce the Deputy Special Agent in charge of the Secret Service Chicago Field Office, Derek Meyer.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Derek Meyer. I'm the Deputy Special Agent in charge of the U.S. Secret Service's Chicago Field Office. I've been in Chicago for the past 6 years, and it is my home. During the past year of planning for the Democratic National Convention, and in the past week especially, I could not have been prouder of this world-class city. I want to thank you, Mayor Johnson. I also want to thank you, Superintendent Snelling. I've been in law enforcement for 24 years. I've traveled the world, and I've lived in cities all over the country. I have never seen anyone better than you. You lead an exceptional police department. I want to thank everyone in the Chicago Police Department, along with OEMC Director Jose Tirado. I also want to thank all of our federal, state, and local partners who contributed to the success of the last week. I also want to thank Chicago Police Chief of Counterterrorism, Dwayne DeVries. I couldn't ask for a better friend or partner to go through this. I want to thank Glenn Brooks, the Director of Community Policing for the Chicago Police Department. And I want to recognize Joel Heffernan, the Assistant Special Agent in charge of the Chicago Field Office, who was involved with every aspect of the planning of the Democratic National Convention. This week, he was out in front of the lines this week, along with the CPD partners, talking to the protesters and out there in force. I always say that the Chicago Field Office is a family, and the people we work with at times like this are part of our family. But I want to thank the men and the women of the Chicago Field Office for all their extra hard work during the build-up for the DNC. The Chicago Field Office is also responsible for the states of Wisconsin and Indiana. This year, in addition to being a hotbed for campaign stops, the Chicago Field Office was also responsible for overseeing the Republican National Convention. That's a huge amount of work, and our team excelled to the challenge. I could not be prouder of them. I have been saying for most of the past year that the city of Chicago is a pro when it comes to putting on large-scale events. Lollapalooza, the Chicago Marathon, NASCAR, and now we can add the 2024 Democratic National Convention to that list. Thank you.
Oh, okay, I guess I'm next. Thank you all. We'll pass it. We'll take questions. And just for the record, that was quite the compliment to our superintendent. I guess that's how they do things around here. You talk about somebody's hair, and then they tell you the greatest person they ever know.
Right here. Oh. And we ask that everyone be respectful of each other's time. One question, one follow-up.
Hi, Mayor.
Hey.
It seemed like some people, perhaps on social media and some on the other side of the political aisle than you, seem to be rooting for something to happen outside the convention. Did you get that sense as well? And why do you think there seemed to be a sense that there was that desire for catastrophe?
Yes, there were individuals who were rooting against Chicago, and they were rooting for violence and chaos. It's no different than what Governor Abbott is doing, attacking our city. Chicago is rising above that, and we always will. As far as, their impetus or their motivation, behind it, I mean, you can only speculate, but here's the thing. Those individuals who were provocating or wishing that there would be chaos, these are the same individuals who justified January 6th. These people are dangerous, but we're grateful that we brought this country together because that's what it's really about. Chicago uniting this city, as well as uniting this country and really setting a marker of how democracy has to exist around the globe. And Chicago, we did it. We did it. We did it.
Good morning, Mayor.
Good morning.
How do you hope to capitalize on the DNC's momentum to tackle the next items on your agenda? And can you give us a preview of what priorities you hope will benefit the most?
Yeah, look, everybody knows, that in order for us to build a better, stronger, safer Chicago, you have to protect people and invest in people. That we've already previewed that. As the superintendent said, homicides are down, shootings are down, violence is down in the city, and investments are up. $20 billion of new investments in the city of Chicago. I don't know if there's any other person in here can find any mayor within the first 15 months of their tenure to reduce homicides by double digits and bring $20 billion of new investment. $1.25 billion for the west and south side of the city of Chicago. $1.25 billion. That is the largest investment for community and neighborhood development in the history of Chicago. So we're going to continue to do what we've always done. We're going to attract the world as, of course, our beloved Black Haitian immigrant and his beloved partner, the Potawatomi woman, when they set up the trade post of the Chicago River, they always saw this as a global epicenter. Chicago was the global capital city of the world. So I don't know if that means we get more revenue from the rest of the world, but it sure looks like it. That's the last part of your question. Yes, there's going to be benefits. Yes, absolutely. And we're already seeing the return on those investments. The big point, though, is many of these investments were happening well before the convention even got here. So what we have is just like adding more sprinkles to a very beautifully fine, decorated red velvet cake.
But in terms of new investments, what specifics do you think, the
Quantum
time is now?
computing. Listen,
No, but in
Alice,
terms of like CTA,
Alice,
CTA.
Alice, look, I hear what you're saying. I get your point. It's already happening. That's all I'm saying. It's already happening. Here, I'll say it like this. There was a young student I was able to talk to during our budget roundtables. And thank you to our budget director, by the way, because she kept everything on budget. Annette Guzman, y'all give her some love. She kept my budget balanced. So Alice, to your point, because we see where the investments are, public transportation, environmental justice, all of these things are happening, housing, a small business expansion, all that is already happening. But this young kid, I asked him that same question. I said, what else can we do to make your life better? You know what this young student said to me, 16 years old, this little girl? She said, do more of what you're already doing. So we're going to do more of what we're already doing.
Question for the superintendent.
Phew, finally. Good grief.
Good morning, Superintendent.
Hey, good morning. One moment before because I kick myself if I left up here and I didn't speak about Director Glenn Brooks from Community Policing, who has been out there for every single protest and communicating back and forth, just the work that he does out there. So, I just realized he was hiding in the back there, so sorry about that, Sam. Go right ahead.
You mentioned a little while ago, obviously, communication has been widespread among all agencies, but specifically your conversations with the Corporation Counsel. What advice did you receive, and how was that applied throughout the week?
Well, it's not just about receiving advice. It's about questions throughout, right? If we saw something that we weren't exactly sure was lawful or unlawful, obviously, I have my legal affairs team, and speaking directly with Mary's team was just amazing for us. So we were able to bounce ideas off of each other just to see what the best approach would be in particular situations where we had questions about whether some gatherings were lawful or not. So it was, I just can't talk enough about that communication, and it helped us out a lot.
Was that specific to the end, kind of last night, towards the end of things after the convention let out, it got a little tense as delegates were leaving the United Center, and they were, people were chanting shame, shame, shame at them. Like, was that one of the incidents you're referring to?
No. So that was a particular case where we just wanted to make sure that the delegates were safe when they were walking by that group of people, because they lingered. Most people had left, they lingered around. We just wanted to make sure that there was no violence that occurred and that those delegates were safe as they were traveling toward public transportation. But it's other things, just about gatherings in the park, speakers, things of that nature.
Superintendent, the tense moments at the protest last night, I wanted to ask about that. We heard a dispersal order, there was contact between police and protesters, and then later on when the delegates were walking by, there were no officers to be seen. Can you just explain what happened there and what police did to diffuse the situation?
Well, we diffused that situation by this, and I just want to let everybody know in the room, and I'm not going to call them media, or members of the media. I will say they had press passes. And those individuals would not move. If you walk by there were more people out there with press passes than there were protesters. And we really had a hard time getting them to move. And it made the situation more chaotic. So we realized as long as we were there were certain members with press passes that were expecting a clash. And I explained to everybody there won't be one. So if you're waiting for the carnage, you can leave. But that didn't happen. So when we started to pull our officers out, we realized there was nothing else there for them to film because the expectations of a clash disappeared. But we did have officers still out there. They just weren't highly visible at that moment because we wanted to make sure that those delegates were safe when they were going by. We had people around CTA and on the platforms to make sure that no one was attacked over there.
Good morning, Superintendent.
Good morning.
Early on, we had these projections of 25,000 protesters showing up. Do you have a good gauge on how many actually showed up? And when it comes to the arrests and things, how it breaks down relative to misdemeanors, felonies, that kind of thing?
So we looked at the numbers. I don't have the exact numbers, but we estimated the first crowd to be somewhere around 3,500 to maybe 4,000 people on Monday. It's kind of hard to gauge what happened on Tuesday because there were people who came in, and that group was relatively small compared to Monday. Wednesday was also a large group, upwards of 2,000, 2,500 maybe. And then last night was probably in that same realm, maybe around 3,000. So when you look at the number of protesters, thousands of protesters who came here and engaged in First Amendment activity, and some came for other reasons, to engage in violence, vandalism. 74 arrests, no major injuries to the officers, just shows what a great job these officers did and how the training applied to that. So we can get you a breakdown of that because we're actually working on a FOIA portal right now to put all of those arrests up in the breakdown, so you'll be able to get that information.
I do have one follow-up to the mayor. Your voice sounds a little bit hoarse today. I imagine there was some celebration last night after the convention. Can you tell us on a personal level what it means to you that a woman of Black and Indian descent is now representing the Democratic Party as the nominee for President of the United States?
It means my daughter, Brayden, is 10 years old. She gets to see a reflection of her being as well as the full expression of her values. Look, I had the opportunity to travel from state to state to state to state within the convention. And I can tell you, whether it's North Carolina or Tennessee, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, people are excited around the country for Kamala Harris. It is truly a love story. It is. And that is the beauty of this moment, because all of that which is historic, that transforms our globe, it starts right here in Chicago. Now, Dilla, the great historian, says that everything dope about America comes from Chicago. I would just take it one step further, is that we are truly a capital city for the globe. Yeah.
It's still morning. Good morning. Superintendent Snelling, this is not a DNC-related question, but still something related to public safety. Over at Injustice Watch this week, we co-published an investigation with Bold Magazine that showed that over the last year, and this is based on OEMC data and CPD data, that over the last year, Chicago police failed to report 200,000 traffic stops to state regulators in violation of state law that requires all of those stops to be reported to the state. And in that data, it shows that in your first 7 to 8 months as superintendent, 1 out of 3 traffic stops went unreported to the state. Why do you think your officers are failing to report these traffic stops, and what will you do to make sure that they do report them?
Well, the first thing I'd have to do is look at the data that you have. We'd have to look
your
at,
folks did look at the data.
But here, again, we'd have to look at that.
They did.
Break that down. Again, once we do that, I can answer that question. Right now, this is not about traffic stops. This is about the DNC. So you can try to turn this into something else all you want.
Into 200,000 traffic stops.
So here's the deal.
Superintendent.
When we get that information,
You did.
and I sit down with my people, then I'll be able to better answer that question.
Mayor Johnson, your office refused to provide a comment on this story, and we're hoping that you would comment on it now.
Looks like your hopes won't be fulfilled. The city of Chicago just displayed some of the best policing in the history of America. These systems that we inherited, because I know your research has done this as well, these systems were jacked up. 1968 was. 2024 isn't. Is there anybody else that has a question?
Could you please pass the mic back? Thank you. We have one right here, and then I'll pass it back. Go down.
Also for the superintendent, Megan Hickey, CBS Chicago. Forgive me if I missed it, but did you give an exact number of arrests just yesterday?
Just yesterday?
Yeah.
There was only 1 arrest made yesterday, but that was for obstruction of traffic.
Okay. And then can you comment on the decision to hold protesters who were charged with municipal violations for sometimes hours at a time? We heard 8 or 9 hours in some situations. The National Lawyers Guild said the Pretrial Fairness Act allows you to, cite and release them in those cases.
You know what? I'd actually have to look at those particular cases. There may be some circumstances around that.
Okay.
So, and it could be processing. I'm not really sure at this point. But sometimes scenes are chaotic. And when we have chaotic scenes, we have to move people. And to move people, it calms situations down. As long as we have people who are standing and they continue to make noise, it draws attention. And the more attention it draws to the officers and the overall situation. Those situations become volatile. And in order to keep that down, to reduce the risk of having to use force or take more people into custody, we may have to move people quickly, and that may lead to some processing issues. But in those particular instances, I don't have all of the facts with me right now, but I'm sure we'll be able to talk about that.
And your team's planning to publish a whole list with citations and all that information?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct, yes.
Superintendent, while you're there, Mike Krauser with BBM Radio asked me if I could ask this question of you. It's the one-year anniversary of the shooting at Sox Park. Where does this investigation stand?
Come on.
I'm asking for a friend.
Really? Here's what I'm going to tell you. We're going to get back to that one too, right? This is about the success of what our officers have done right now. And we will get back to you on that one. Listen, I just want to be clear here and now. We can continue to talk about the past. We can continue to throw stones. But right now, I'm living in the glow of the work that these police officers did to show. And you can do everything that you want to do to try to throw paint on it, to try to besmirch it, to try to bring it down. I didn't sleep at all last night because I stayed up all night thinking about those faces and the pride on the faces of those men and women, knowing that they showed up and they protected people's rights and didn't violate any of it. This is a department that's transforming. I will not be moved. You will not break that down. My men and women stood strong, and they're going to continue to do it. So cast whatever you want on it. They protected this city, and they're going to continue to do it. And there isn't a traffic stop in the world that's going to change that. These individuals are working, they're being trained, they're being developed, and as we move, you will see this department continue to grow, and you will see it improve. You will see our relationships with community and community members improve. It has already started. So we can continue to talk about the past, but I don't live in the past. I work toward the future, and that's what everybody up here is doing right now. Is there another question?
Well, the question that I had, or my story, was for the mayor. And Mayor, you kind of reflected a little bit on how the convention went. I guess the first half of the question is, on a political side, obviously you were there, I assume, every night. How are you feeling about Kamala Harris and how this positions the Democratic Party going forward?
Well, you know, it's a very healthy question. It's a vibrant one, in fact. The American people need government to work, not bicker, not attack. And what the world experienced, what the people of America experienced, was a disciplined, balanced presentation from the wide range of political views. I mean, Republicans spoke at our convention. The delegates of this convention, the most diverse delegation in the history, from our individuals with disabilities to a Native American caucus, I believe the first time in the history of the DNC. And so I just think from a political context is that the strength of the globe, it really is contingent upon our democracy in this experience here thriving, I should say. So I hope that it gets at it. It's as a social studies teacher, I wish I was starting school on Monday. I mean, this is how the first day of school would start for me, which I'm really proud of my son, who happens to be taking AP Government. Good luck, son. But yeah, it's just politically, I mean, it's just one of those things that I think all of us in this room, I say this with a great deal of humility, we will be primary sources one day to some college kid 20, 30 years from now. Well, at least some of us will be, that will come and ask us, you know, what that moment was like and what it felt like and how it shifted to the trajectory of America. I mean, this is the party, the only party, by the way, which the city of Chicago led. It's the only party that condemned terrorism and has called for the immediate release of hostages and for a ceasefire permanently. That really sums it up, that all of our interests can live in a space that we call America. What a beautiful story. Have fun, social studies teachers.
Again, the other side, I guess, Matt, was more on, in many ways, this convention was putting Chicago's reputation sort of on the line. The way things were handled, that was all talked about earlier. What do you think this does to Chicago's reputation, and what are you hearing from people that you spoke to about how they viewed Chicago compared to perhaps the reputation they thought coming in?
Yeah, okay, I get it. That's a really good question. Look, I think for Chicagoans, you know, there's a sense of pride that we have. When people underestimate us, you have to understand who's on this stage, you all. Like, we're not just like government officials. We're fathers, mothers, aunts, cousins. Like, our family, you know, look us in the eyes every single day to make sure that we're okay. I know that's true. And this stage and workers all over the city have the same experience. Whether you get ready to go out and drive a bus or put together a lesson plan or provide child care services or to show up at a police district or, you know, a firehouse, wherever you are, street sanitation, garbage truck, people look us in the face every single morning and we go out and we do the thing, right? And so what the reputation that Chicago has had from Chicagoans, all it allowed us to do is to look each other in the face like we always do and say, get back out there and do it again. Now, as far as the world is concerned, yeah, look, I think it's pretty clear people fell back in love with Chicago. They fell back in love with Chicago. I keep telling you, this is the great love story. The probability of Jean-Baptiste Point du Sable and Kitty Waha meeting from different parts of the world. And now the city of Chicago is at the center of it. Carnegie Steel, the working man woman's car was built here. Electricity came to life. Quantum computing, a new form of technology that's going to revolutionize how we deal with traffic issues or Alzheimer's. That's happening in Chicago. So, yeah, I mean, we're going to have to build more affordable housing because more people are coming.
Mayor, kind of as a follow-up to that, I mean, to what extent did you feel personally, like your reputation, maybe not on the line is too strong, but you were certainly under the microscope, freshman mayor inheriting this DNC has to put on the party. To the extent that maybe that pressure is off, what do you hope that means for your the rest of your term?
Yeah, well, you know, I don't know about the pressure being off, right? I mean, we have a school district that is still woefully underfunded. You know what I mean? Like, you have to keep in mind, my chief of staff, I think 90% of our conversations were about next week. I mean, like, we're living in the future. That sounds strange, doesn't it? Let's start over. I don't want to say it like that. We are preparing for the future every day. And, you know, I think the pressure that we feel on an everyday basis to make sure that we're picking up trash on time, that we're keeping communities safe, you know, that we're putting fires out or EMTs showing up to save a life. That pressure didn't go away, did it? I mean, no one up here is like saying we're so relieved now we could just go take a vacation. In fact, no one is getting approved for vacation for another 2 weeks. But I think to your point, though, about being a, you know, rookie mayor and being under the microscope, son of a pastor with no political ties, none. My first political encounter, my political mentor is Senate President Don Harmon. Invited me into his space. Didn't know me from anyone. And you rise up from the ranks of a middle school teacher, just an everyday person trying to get by, to become mayor of the greatest city in the world. That microscope is really the microscope on what every black and brown boy should experience and dream of. That microscope, I got you. I just want to make sure I bring this point home, that microscope is for the little brown girl who is first generation, who just got here because you had a tyrant at the border, tried to exploit, and now she's learning another language and is falling in love with the city of Chicago. That's the microscope. And just for the record, Michael Jordan averaged 28 points a game his rookie year, and he led the Bulls to the playoffs. And then you know what happened after that, right?
It took a while before they won a championship.
No,
Right?
it didn't take that long. It didn't. And 6 of them, by the way.
Yes.
You get the point, though.
I hear you. And you brought up next week, I think next week you're going to release a potentially billion-dollar budget gap. Is there any, do you almost wish that the timing was different, that you could, as the superintendent said, kind of live in the glow of this for a little longer before you have to get right into a thick budget season?
No, the timing is perfect. There's a time and a season for everything. You can't decide which part of your life you want to live in primarily. That's petulant. We don't respond to this position of opportunity obsequiously. We don't fawn over this. This is work. It's work. That's what my father said, never be afraid to work. You don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill. So we're going to address it. We're going to approach it like I promised I would. We've got a great team that's going to help us do that.
Superintendent Snelling. Chip Mitchell with WBEZ. You mentioned
How are you, Chip?
earlier, first actually very quickly, the 74 arrests, that begins Monday or Sunday?
That began Monday.
Okay. Do you have a number for Sunday? I think there are a couple. I can't remember.
No, I believe there was one arrest, but it wasn't necessarily related to First Amendment activity.
Okay. So the question I want to ask I have this instrument here so I can actually read it back to you. You said earlier today, the DNC is behind us. Now it's time to bring the city back up to the standards that we know it can be. What standards did you have in mind?
Well, we have to continue to bring crime down. Things are trending, but we have to continue to bring crime down. Now, in order to do that, we have to build relationships, and that's reforming our department. Right now, we're under consent decree, and we want to make sure that we're working on that consent decree. We're coming into compliance with the standards of the consent decree. I'm in constant contact with the IMT, the Independent Monitoring Team, and everyone else who's involved. I just want to make sure that we're looking at everything that within the department where there are mistakes that have been made to take corrective actions on those mistakes. Now, we've seen what great training and tools and preparedness can do for these officers when we give them the right training, the right direction, and the right leadership. That's what's important here. We can talk about numbers. People can sit and look at data. Data doesn't tell you everything. We have to look at everything, on that micro level. And as long as we're doing that, we'll just continue to develop and we'll continue to grow the department. And that's what it's about. So once we start doing those things, we can bring crime down simultaneously as we're doing it and develop those relationships in communities.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Chip.
Anyone else?
Okay, all right, thank you all. Is that everybody? Okay, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
2028?
Hey, that sounds, that sounds about right, doesn't it?
Is that
Thank you,
yours?
Superintendent.
Thank you.